I'm going to speed this up. I was just about to show you a close-up of this page, the bottom corner there, where it says the medium is the message, bracket effect, but the user is the content, underlined. And then there's a notation at the very bottom, fish and axle, which is short form, presumably, for we don't know who discovered fish. We don't know who discovered water, but we know it wasn't a fish. And the axle bit is about the interplay between the wheel and the axle. Anyway, this is interesting because this is Marshall's 1971 note telling you that the medium in the message is about the effect and that the user is the content. That's pretty cool. So anyway, I was just going through some of these notes here. He goes into hot and cool, and I'll dive into that. Hot and cool are not categories or classifications. They are reciprocal processes of participation patterns. For example, Miller's hang-ups and reversal of these terms. Eye, ear, radio in the 20s was hot, is cool now. TV in the 50s was cool, or far out equals hot in the sense of 20s. He's talking about the reversal of terms, and he goes into this in the introduction to the second edition of Understanding Media, which he had already written by this point in 1971. Hot, quote, as syncopation is involvement via discontinuity, dislocating mind into attention. Also hot as new means of shifting music and sound from indoors to out of doors, from concert hall to total environment via mechanical, gram, and electric radio. Total environment via mechanical, like the gramophone, and electric, like the radio. Perceptual interplay and reciprocity, figure ground flips. And we've come back to a second. This is a page A. This is a new revision. Hot and cool with reference to access retrieval. For example, my guest for the imperial theme of Henry Parcell, an eluded musicologist, but was handed to me by the proprietor of a popular recording shop. It was the prelude to Purcell's forgotten opera, Abdelazar, The Vengeance of the Moor. The situation of identifying, tracking down chance musical experience from the environment, as tricky as pursuing faces in a crowd or flavors in a metropolis, for example, Dentex. The Rex, 1939. 20 years later, Professor Crawford said, quote, the Italian name for red snapper, big teeth, delicate flavor. Since then, no request. I don't know what's going on. There's something about Dentex, real cool. In other words, center without margin, involvement of senses, and social experience, including travel. Well, I don't have time to go through every single note in this. But there's some cool stuff. The user is the content of any medium of expression. He's talking about, here's an anecdote. On a Toronto panel with Buckminster Fuller and W.H. Auden, we were discussing changes in the visual arts. I inquired, what effect have the astronauts had on theater? And W.H. Auden replied, "I am a 19th century man and proud of it." He may have been asserting the priority of private experience over mass awareness, the human dimension or human scale against the corporate and inclusive consciousness of planet Polluto. In the context of scale or mass and volume, hot and cool can be ways of asserting acceptance or denial, private identity or ready immersion. Hot pants are not private dress, but tribal mask, i.e. real cool, far out. So there you go. And then there's further drafts of this speech. Why I was hoping for a recording of this was these are actually some fairly written out, developed notes where it's usually a lot less formulated. And the advantage of having the speech notes with a recording is that it can be useful in decoding other speeches for which I have less information. Cooler notes, if you will. The other things in this file are some correspondences, programs, mementos from the trip. In the box are some newspapers that they collected in Paris and other places around the world. I had a quick look at them earlier, but couldn't see anything particularly interesting about them. I'll just show you quickly the other file folder I have of notes, and these are speech notes of Marshall McLuhan's speeches, beginning with Ohio University, September 30th, 1968. Typical, I didn't get him in there, but we open up with a whole bunch of jokes. He liked to warm up his audience. Here again we have dictated notes typed out with some writing over top. Advertising age group, Washington, December 5th, 1968. That's a pretty cool one. Here's one that raised some eyebrows. Let me just get a bookmark. Oops. This is rather famous. The Bilderberg Conference, Elsinore, Denmark, May 7th, 1969. And here are his notes on Bilderberg stationery. This is quite the thing. I'm sure it's been written up somewhere. There were reference to it in the letters of Marshall McLuhan. Marshall was kind of trying to find out what these Bilderberg people knew, these supposed masters of the universe or whatever, and I guess he was disappointed to find out they didn't know very much in his terms as far as how media shape society. In any case, here are all the notes for his speech, which one of the many projects I would love to do is publish these notes, the collected speeches of Marshall McLuhan. I think it would make for a pretty cool read. A lot of these speeches are long forgotten. We have recordings for some, not for many others, and American Booksellers Association, Washington, June 1969. Boston, Society of Industrial Realtors, Toronto, 69. Osgood Hall Lawyers Club, 69. Urban Research Corporation, University of Chicago. Topic: the hardware-software mergers. Why haven't they been successful? There's a bit more there. I'm going way over my 15 minutes, but whatever. Sunday, November 16th, 1969, University of Chicago, on panel with Francis Keppel, chairman of the board and president of General Learning Corporation, Kenneth B. Clark, eminent black social psychologist, and Jonathan Kozol, author of Death at an Early Age. Marshall wrote Old at 3. Topic: the hardware-software mergers. Why haven't they been successful? It says his travel schedule, and here we have his notes, presumably as to why they haven't been successful. I mean, frankly, a lot of Marshall's speeches go over a lot of the same territory. There's a lot of duplication. National Religious Broadcasters in Washington, January 1970. The audience as actor and the priesthood of the city. Quite a few notes here. Nobody understood Gutenberg. Trees, deromanization of old organizational chart. Peter Prine. Return of tribal involvement. Lapse of visual connectivity. In Electric World is the death of the Newtonian ground. Death Conquest. Take a bit of work to really flesh out this stuff so you can see, so that anybody else could understand what the heck he's trying to say. South Carolina, State University College, New York, libraries past, present, and future. That's cool. International Association of Art Critics, Ottawa. That looks cool. See why it's easy to get distracted in here, but I really am supposed to be inventorying this library. Do we have a title? So his notes here are CA, Cliched Archetype, Scrap and Retrieval, Garbage as Art Form, Antiquities, Recovery of Primitive Societies and the Occult as Old Garbage, now retrieved as archetypal. A note to bring up Lucy Rand, Jacques Lucy Rand. Take Today Through the Vanishing Point. Abstract. See, this is pretty typical. This was his speech right there. And presumably he talked for an hour, half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. But that is the entire speech, actually. These pages back here are just for him to read some quotes from. But that was the whole thing. August 23rd, 1970, AICA Congress, Ottawa, International Association of Art Critics. Certified General Accountants Association. This was at the height of his demand. Syracuse University, New York. Auburn College, New York. Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation, Queen's University, New York. Patterns of Teaching for the Wired Planet. Bazillion's Retreat, St. Michael's College, University of Guelph, Hawaii. There's quite a bit in Hawaii. Chaminade College of Honolulu. May 4th, 1972, Dr. Marshall McLuhan, Director, Center for Culture and Technology. Dear Dr. McLuhan, trying to tell you what your visit has meant to many of us here at Chaminade is almost impossible. Your friendship and kind understanding has poured balm on my rather battered spirits. Although relationships with certain administrators will continue to remain strained, I fear, as a result of the administrative errors which caused the embarrassments, there is no reason for minimizing the great good which your visit has and will accomplish. Such half-truths as, quote, Marshall McLuhan is too rich for our blood, unquote, are to be taken in stride, I suppose, yet I frequently wonder how many of us as educators realize the extent of our anemia. It sounds like there was a bit of something happened. Maybe they were not happy with his fee or something. But this is cool. I have the copy of the audio tape recording of your conference at Kuykendall, Kuykendal Auditorium, Wednesday evening. Several persons have requested that a copy be available at Hamilton Library at the University for student reference. To whom should I send the master tape, and how may those requests be satisfied? All right, well, there's a lead. Hamilton Library at the University, Chaminade College of Honolulu. Anyway, aloha in God's love, Sister Jean Louise Parrish. Cool. Marshall was in a bit of demand then. Anyway, Hawaii, bit of drama. Galveston, Denver, May 672, Harold Innis Conference. That's cool. Oh. It's a single page for Innis. Service-to-service environment, Innis, pattern recognition, Xerox, flip from Gutenberg to satellite, touch, X-ray for, not sure, computer, homogeneous, general systems, African writing, Whiteley, Hobel, Law of Primitive Man. Well, that's a little spare. Science Research Association, Toronto, reschooling in the 70s. Canada U.S. Bar Association. The electric age ends the monopoly of legal knowledge. Why keep the ladies out? Yeah, you heard that right. The electric age ends the monopoly of legal knowledge, why keep the ladies out, ? Canadian U.S. Bar Association, Toronto, June 4th, 1972. Why keep the ladies out? Why, indeed. University of Western Ontario. Where it's at. On to Methuselah. Oh, another Canada-U.S. Bar Association. William Carlow Lecture, Ottawa. Philosophy in the Electric Age. San Francisco 70, TV and its effect on the nation. University of Southern California. And a couple more. Anyway, that's the speech on speeches. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you wish to help with my work, you can find my page on Patreon, patreon.com/McLuhan. Thanks to everybody who's already supporting me there, and otherwise, it helps a lot. I wish I could spend every day in here, but we're not there yet. Back to books. See you next week. Thanks for being here. Peace.